I've always wanted to have a show about music on television that wasn't just like a soundbite show, where you actually found out in depth about people's love of music, who were their influences. A really intelligent show, asking really interesting musicians who've been around for a long time, in-depth questions that probably haven't been asked before about music. And I couldn't think of anybody better to do it than Elvis Costello, because Elvis and I have known each other quite a while now, and he has the most encyclopedic knowledge of music, and it has an avid interest of music. And I thought it would be great just to get on record, like the old Dick Cavett shows. When you go and watch those on television, they were really interesting. They weren't soundbite. I'm just here to plug my latest record. And you do a talk show normally, and you get maybe 5 or 7 minutes, and that's it. You don't find out anything about what really makes these musicians tick, and who their influences were, why they do what they do, why they love it so much. So I wanted to do an hour-long program on various really interesting people like Lou Reed, and Tony Bennett, people like that, who have been around for such a long time and are still at the top of their game, and yet come from different, completely opposite ends of the music spectrum. But are legendary performers in their own right. And what makes them tick, what secrets do we not know about their music and who they love and whatever. So I thought it would be a really good idea to put a series like this together, and it has come together. I'm doing the first one today. And they're doing President Clinton tomorrow. And President Clinton, it's just going to be about music. It's not going to be about politics. It's going to be, what kind of music does he like? It's finding out the dark secrets, not the dark secrets, but the secrets that musicians and people who love music have never really told before, because they never get the chance. I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, I'm doing the show today. I don't know what's going to happen. It's a conversation with Elvis, who's, as I say, you can talk to Elvis about music for 8 or 9 hours at a go, because he has such an interest and love of everything that's good. I mean, we're only focusing on people who are at the top of their game, and who've been around for a long time and who have stories to tell. Mm-hmm. I mean, I can't imagine the stories that Lou Reed's got that no one's ever heard before. Certainly not on television, anyway.
What age did you recognize a vocation as an artist, and when that arrived, did you think of it first as a writer or as a musician?
Out on the island, I had a little amp and a guitar, and I learned to play it from the radio, or 45s. And since I had it, I was in bands since I was about 14. I've always had trouble reading anything with long paragraphs. I'm a little dyslexic, and I reverse things.
I watched an audience with where you are in the show, and your friends were speckled throughout the audience asking you questions, and so they have greater license to ask you maybe cheekier questions or more personal questions. Is Elvis granted that same?
He can do anything he wants. I mean, I don't know what he's going to ask me. I don't care what he's going to ask me, because I know it's going to be of interest, and we'll be like, they'll probably have to tell us to stop after 2 hours, because we'll be rabbiting away like two people possessed. I'm so looking forward to doing it, just to talking about the things that I loved in the past, who I listened to. I mean, people look at me and they know about my glasses, and they know about the legendary showmanship, and various other things. But, I've never really done anything like this, which explained who influenced me, who the start of my career, what happened, who I met. It's really interesting historical stuff, and I think it should be put on tape. And that's why we're doing this series, because we want this to be kind of like something that people can look back in years ago as a reference point.
A living history. I find also, too, when you watch television these days, things are taken so often out of context. Yeah. And I feel this allows legends to kind of keep their words in context. Is that why so many people agreed to be on the
I think
series?
so, because A, they love Elvis Costello, and B, I think they trust me as a producer. And B, they can, actually talk about music and not have to, talk about, well, you dated this girl and what happened with it. It's nothing to do with that. It's nothing to do with sensationalism. It's purely to do with music and music history. I mean, there are so many people we'd love to have had, like James Brown, Nina Simone, they're dead. Oscar Peterson died very recently. It was, there's nothing on Nina Simone. It's tragic. There's hardly any footage of her talking about her music and her life, and she had the most incredible life. She was one of the first people ever to black people to go to Juilliard. she's certainly one of the most fascinating artists of the 20th century, but we really know nothing about her.
In creating this living history, do you have a vision of this show going on for many seasons?
I hope so, yeah. I mean, I think once people see it, and it's, you know, getting people schedules. I mean, the people we're after have the biggest schedules, like the Bruce Springsteens, the Paul McCartneys, the U2s. But I'm sure they will, I mean, they're all really interested in doing it. And I think that if it just focuses on the music, then I think they'll do it without question. It's a big deal for Elvis. It's hard. It's very hard to do something like this. You know, I mean, and it takes a lot of courage to do something like this. So he's the only person that could have done it. I mean, I could have done it, but I just don't have the time, or actually couldn't have done it, because Elvis is much better at it than I would have been. But it takes a lot of courage, and I can really give him 10 out of 10 for balls for doing this, because I think he's done Tonight Show, not Tonight Show, he did the Letterman Show, and he was excellent at that. And I think it just gives him another string to his bow. But you know, it's quite a daunting prospect. But he's such a music lover, and he does his homework really well.
One of the most innovative aspects of the show is that part of the proceeds goes towards HIV/AIDS, TB, and malaria solutions in Africa. Yeah. So how was that decision made?
Well, we wanted to give something, HIV and AIDS is something that I'm obviously very interested in. And we've hooked up with the Red Campaign, with Bono and people like that, with the people who run the Red Campaign, to give a percentage of the show to back to people who have AIDS, and so that there is another good reason for doing the show. And all the music element of the show will have some impact on people's lives, which is nice, because, you know, Red are doing such good work anyway. And I haven't worked with Red, I haven't done anything with them. And we had the idea of, and Bono really liked it, and of course, you know, very grateful. So, you know, it's another thing that, you know, my organization, I've never really done anything with Red and worked with Bono in anything. So it's just nice that two activists like, you know, Bono and myself are now actually working together, because we're giving some of the proceeds to his organization.
Is that kind of laying the gauntlet down now for other TV shows to maybe start donating their proceeds?
I don't know. I mean, I know that American Idol do charity work, and very good charity work. It would be nice, but we're just focusing on what we do. And as I say, it's nice for me to be able to actually say to Bono, we're actually working on something together, or I'm working on something that I can give to him to say, listen, I'm supporting you, because we're all in this together. There's no competition. It's not like who can raise the most money or anything. We're all doing the things because we think they should be done. And you know, Bono's more of a front man than I am, and he goes out there and rattles cages, and I'm a good fundraiser. So if we can raise some funds and give it to Bono to go and rattle more cages, then fantastic.
Mm-hmm. I just want to talk to you for a moment about this space, too, performing here in New York.
Yeah.
Why was that decision made?
Well, Elvis lives here, and you know, he's got 2 little babies, and Diana Krall, his wife, also, you know, spends a lot of time here, so it makes more sense. And people seem to come through New York it's a good hub. It couldn't be done in LA, because otherwise Elvis doesn't have a home there, and I wanted Elvis to feel at home, and so we ended up here, and I'm glad we did.
I read a recent interview of yours where you said that people want quality, and I find that soundbite culture doesn't really give that to them. Is this an attempt to kind of give great television?
This is why we wanted to do the show. You very rarely, as I say, get to know what a great musician, has to say, or the interesting things he has to say. It's, you know, you're on and off in 5 minutes. As I said before, if you watch some of the old footage of the Dick Cavett show, you got to know what, and he asked really intelligent questions. This is an intelligent show hosted by an extremely intelligent man with intelligent artists on it who have contributed a great deal for the music for at least 30 or 40 years. So you're going to get to know, you know, as I say, I want it to be like a historical reference point. And to get this on tape, because, you know, it's important that people have a reference point to go back to. And when you look at James Brown, and I'm sure there's footage of James Brown, but it would have been lovely to have him on the show, and Nina Simone, as I said, to get these people and to really get them to talk. And I know nothing about Nina Simone except that she's my favorite artist of the 20th century. And I would have given anything for her to be alive to do something like this, to give her the kudos that she deserves.
One of the most amazing aspects of the show is that you have Elvis paired with people that he may never have or would have thought to have performed with.
Right.
It's an unlikely matchmaking thing. So
well, I have performed with Elvis at charity things, but we've never really done anything together on television. And I don't know if he's going to perform with Lou Reed, but that would be very interesting as well. Elvis is the consummate performer. He's amazing. He does so many different shows, so many different formats of shows. You know, he's always recording with different people. He's got 2 albums in the can at the moment. He's doing shows before he goes on tour with the Police. He's doing different shows with different lineups. And for me tonight, for example, I get to play with Alan Toussaint, who's one of my heroes as a keyboard player. We're going to be talking about keyboard artists tonight and songwriters. And Alan Toussaint is one of my heroes. And he's playing in the band that, you know, we're going to play with. So that for me is a thrill. Just that even, you know, is incredible for me. I'm all about a larger-than-life lifestyle, or people think I am, but actually what they don't know is you know, when I meet someone like Alan Toussaint, that for me is like meeting, you know, someone the equivalent of the Dalai Lama, because for me, he influenced the way I played the piano. He's a historical part of rock and roll and an incredibly important musician.
I saw an interview with Paul McCartney in the 80s where he said Elvis Costello, just like John Lennon, because of spectacles, is a pussycat on the inside, but can be aggressive on the outside, isn't afraid to say what he thinks.
No.
Do you think that describes Elvis and why he'd be a good host?
Absolutely. I mean, Elvis, as a young performer, had all the energy and anger that really was so fantastic, and carried his music through. I mean, I think they just released this year's Model, re-released it. I mean, that was probably, you know, one of his finest albums. And he had all this energy, and as someone who, I didn't know him then, I only known him recently, in the last few years. I didn't know him there, but I loved what he was about, and the energy that he brought to his mannerism and his music. And yeah, he's not a bullshitter, Elvis. He's no, you know, he'll say whether he likes something or he doesn't like something. And that's why I like him. I mean, you know, he's just straight up honest guy who loves and adores great musicians. And this is all about great musicians and great music.
No, we didn't. No, yeah, okay, yeah. Yeah. What about doing